The galaxy trembled. News of Earth's victories had spread like fire across the stars. The unbreakable shipyard of Taraxis had fallen. The fortress of Storym had been broken. The Council, once seen as eternal, now carried scars for all to see. But with every wound, the Council's anger grew. In their grand chamber, lit by cold blue light, the High Speaker rose before the gathered delegates. His voice carried across the hall with iron command. The humans have made a mockery of our authority. They spread chaos. They give false hope to lesser races. This cannot continue. We will gather every fleet, every weapon, every soldier, and we will strike at the heart of their world. Earth will fall, and with it all rebellion. The chamber echoed with forced agreement, yet behind lowered eyes some delegates did not cheer. Doubt had taken root, and even the Council could feel it. On Earth, the warning came swiftly. Probes at the edge of the solar system detected vast fleets moving through the stars. Hundreds of ships, more than humanity had ever faced. Admiral Kalen Voss stood in the war room, watching the numbers grow on the holographic display. The enemy was massive, like a storm swallowing the sky. "They are bringing everything," whispered one officer. Voss nodded. "Yes, they believe crushing Earth will crush hope. That means this battle is not only about us, it is about the entire galaxy." Ambassador Alara Quinn stood beside him. Her voice was calm, though her heart was heavy. "If we fall, the galaxy will return to silence. If we stand, the galaxy will rise." The days before the invasion were filled with preparation. Earth's skies became alive with ships. Fleets moved into orbit, defense platforms came online, and orbital rings gleamed with energy. On the moon, hidden stations hummed with power as long-prepared weapons awoke. Even Mars and the outer colonies joined, sending every vessel they had. Across Earth itself, people stood ready. Cities built shelters, volunteers worked tirelessly, and Valorans, those who had once fled as refugees, now trained alongside humans. They carried both grief and fire in their eyes. One young Valoran said it best, "This is not only Earth's home, it is now ours too. We will not see it fall." The day arrived. The Council Armada emerged from the void, blotting out the stars. Their ships stretched farther than the eye could see, shining with cold light. It was the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in centuries, a storm of iron and fire. On Earth, alarms sounded. Fleets took formation. The great defense lines lit the skies. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship. "Steady as stone. Transmit to the fleet," he ordered. A signal echoed across every human ship, every Valoran fighter, every station and soldier. "Today they come to silence us. They believe fear will win again. But we are not afraid. We fight not only for Earth. We fight for every world that dreams of freedom. We fight for those who cannot. And we will show them that justice cannot be broken." The fleet answered with a single voice. For Earth, for freedom. The battle began. The Council fleet advanced in a wall of fire, weapons burning like stars. Their numbers were overwhelming, their formation flawless. But the humans did not meet them head-on. Instead, drones scattered like sparks, creating false signals and phantom fleets. Enemy formations twisted, unsure of what was real. Human ships weaved through gaps, striking with precision. They did not waste fire. They struck where it mattered most. Stations hidden behind moons fired great beams, piercing through enemy cruisers. Fighter wings darted like shadows, slipping between enemy giants. The sky became a storm of light. At first, the Council pressed forward with sheer strength. Their numbers seemed endless, pushing against Earth's defenses like a tide. But the humans fought with imagination. When Council warships targeted Earth's orbital ring, humans activated decoy generators, making the ring appear broken. The enemy poured fire into empty space, wasting precious time. When the Council sent heavy battleships forward, humans lured them into hidden minefields, detonating charges that crippled their engines. And when the enemy tried to swarm with smaller craft, Valoran pilots rose. Their fighters, swift and daring, moved with vengeance. Together with human squadrons, they cut through the swarms, their unity unbreakable. Hours passed. Both sides suffered losses. Ships burned, falling in silence into the void. But something was changing. On Council vessels, whispers spread. Their crews had been told that humans were weak, backward, unworthy of the stars. Yet here they were, fighting not only with courage, but with brilliance. Doubt spread faster than fire. At the height of battle, the Council released their final weapon, A colossal dreadnought, a ship so vast it carried entire cities within its hull. Its guns could shatter moons. Its shields glowed with blinding power. The dreadnought advanced toward Earth, a mountain of steel against the fragile blue world below. On the flagship, Voss watched it approach. "That is their symbol," he said quietly. "If it reaches Earth, the galaxy will believe we cannot win. How do we stop it?" asked a captain. Voss's eyes were steady. "Not with strength, with strategy." Human ships began to draw the dreadnought's fire, darting in close, forcing it to turn again and again. Smaller vessels dove into its shield perimeter, striking weak points and retreating before the enemy could lock on. Meanwhile, a secret plan unfolded. Hidden within the chaos, a group of stealth ships slipped close, carrying a weapon not of destruction, but of clever design. A swarm of nanotech devices built to disrupt energy cores. The stealth ships released their payload, and the swarm burrowed deep into the dreadnought's systems. Slowly, its great lights began to flicker. Its shields wavered. Its weapons stuttered on every screen across the battlefield. The symbol of council power began to falter. The galaxy watched as the dreadnought, the pride of the council, shuddered and fell silent. The council fleet hesitated. For the first time, their commanders could not shout their crews into obedience. Fear rippled through their ranks, not fear of humans, but fear that everything they believed was breaking. And in that moment, humanity struck. The human fleet surged forward, coordinated and precise. One by one, council ships fell, not to overwhelming fire, but to flawless tactics. The council armada, once unstoppable, began to retreat. When the last enemy vessel fled into the void, Earth's skies cleared. The stars shone again. On every human and Valoran ship, cheers erupted, not in arrogance but in relief and triumph, in the knowledge that they had stood against the greatest power in the galaxy, and they had not fallen. The galaxy trembled once more, but now with change. Across distant worlds, oppressed peoples rose in secret meetings, speaking the same words. "The council is broken." The humans stood. "Now we must stand too." Small rebellions sparked. Colonies declared independence. Entire species questioned the council's rule. In the weeks that followed, Earth did not march out as conqueror. Instead, it reached out as ally. Human ships traveled to Valoran refugee fleets, to neutral systems, to frightened colonies. Everywhere they went, they carried the same message. "We do not fight to rule. We fight to free." Ambassador Quinn led delegations guiding alliances built not on fear but on trust. Valorans stood beside humans, their voices strong once again. Admiral Voss stood with his fleet, not as a warlord but as a guardian, ensuring peace where the council once spread fear. And in time, something greater than victory was born. A new alliance rose, not built by chains but by choice. Races who had once bowed in silence now lifted their voices together. At its heart stood Earth, not as master, but as friend. The galaxy would remember the day when warships of Earth delivered justice, not with cruelty but with courage, not with conquest but with compassion. And from that day forward, whenever a people looked to the stars in fear, they remembered the words spoken before the final battle: "Justice cannot be broken." And they believed it. Harwan, mockery. Across the stars, the Galactic Council chamber stretched wider than any human building had ever been. Its walls glowed with soft blue light, made from living crystals that hummed faintly. Hundreds of species sat in circular rows, their voices blending into a constant murmur. Some were covered in shimmering scales, others had wings folded neatly behind their backs, and many looked nothing like creatures from Earth. At the very center of this chamber stood a single human representative. His name was Ambassador Elias Ward. He wore a simple navy suit with a silver pin that carried the emblem of Earth, a small blue and green sphere wrapped in white stars. Compared to the Grand Robe's armor and flashing ornaments of the alien delegates, Elias looked plain, and yet every eye was on him. It was the first time humanity had been given the right to speak at the council, and though Elias stood tall, he could already feel the laughter rising from the crowd. One of the alien leaders, a tall insect-like being with glowing mandibles, clicked its claws against the floor. Its voice echoed through a translator field, sharp and mocking. "Humanity presents itself as a new member of the council, but we have studied your records. You tell strange tales to your children, Stories of thunder gods, winged horses, and warriors who fight impossible battles. You still cling to myths? How primitive. A wave of laughter rippled through the chamber. Another alien, this one with skin like polished stone, leaned forward. Its deep voice rumbled like rolling boulders. You claim to be rational explorers, but your own history is painted with nonsense. You believe in giants, sea monsters, and heroes who defeat them with swords. Your people dreamed up such things because you were weak. Only weak civilizations create such fantasies. Elias kept his face calm, though inside he could feel a fire burning. He did not raise his voice. He did not argue. Instead, he simply stood still and let the laughter echo. A smaller alien, bird-like with silver feathers, tilted its head. Perhaps humans are here to entertain us. Let them tell us more stories of their false gods and impossible battles. At least it will pass the time. The chamber filled with more chuckles. Elias finally spoke, his words even and measured. My people tell stories, yes. Stories of gods, of heroes, of monsters. We tell stories of courage when there is fear, of hope when there is despair. These myths are not weakness. They are memory. They are lessons. They are reminders that even when the world seems impossible, there is always a way forward. His words echoed softly, but most delegates dismissed them with a wave of their hands. Some did not even bother to listen. The insect-like leader clacked its mandibles again. We need no lessons from dreamers. We live in the stars already. You are latecomers. Keep your myths on your small blue world. The galaxy has no use for them. The chamber roared with agreement. Elias bowed his head politely and returned to his seat. He knew better than to argue further. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy. Their fleets were small compared to the ancient empires. Their colonies were scattered. For now, silence was the wiser choice, but silence did not mean weakness. When Elias returned to his shuttle, he looked out the viewport at the endless stars. Beyond the glow of the Council's central station, he knew his people were preparing. Humanity's colonies were growing faster than anyone expected. Shipyards on Mars, Titan, and the asteroid belt worked day and night. Fleets were training in silence, hidden behind coded transmissions. The galaxy thought humans were dreamers. Elias smiled faintly. Let them think that. Across the galaxy, in shadowed corners of the Council's vast archives, a few alien analysts whispered among themselves. One, a gray-skinned creature with wide eyes, tapped glowing charts. Look at their speed. Human colonies multiply faster than projections. Their trade routes are efficient. Their war industries grow without pause. Another, with tentacles coiled around a console, hissed back. The others will not listen. They only see humans as storytellers. They laugh at myths but do not ask why such myths were made. They forget that a species does not survive thousands of years on a dangerous world without reason. The first nodded. Yes, Earth was full of predators, storms, and disasters. Myths of heroes were not weakness. They were survival guides. But when these analysts brought their reports before the Council, they were mocked too. You worry too much, the insect-like leader said. Humans will never rise above their fantasies. Let them spread their silly tales, and once again, the chamber laughed. Far from the Council, on a human colony orbiting a red star, Admiral Catherine Hale stood inside the command center of Fleet Group 7. Before her, giant screens showed shipyards filled with warships under construction. Carriers, cruisers, and destroyers gleamed under artificial light. A young officer approached. Admiral, reports confirm our expansion has gone unnoticed. The aliens do not believe we pose any threat. Hale's lips curved into a thin smile. Good, that gives us time. We will not strike first, but if they mock us, if they underestimate us, they will regret it. She looked at the massive hull of a new battleship drifting into position. Its name glowed across the side in bold white letters. Ares. The myths lived on, not as weakness, but as banners of strength. Back on Earth, children listened to old stories. Teachers told them about Hercules lifting mountains, about Thor's hammer striking lightning, about Gilgamesh searching for immortality. The children laughed and clapped, not realizing that these myths were seeds planted in their hearts. Seeds of courage, seeds of defiance, seeds of hope. Every generation grew up with these tales, and every generation carried the message, humanity never bows forever. At the next council session, Elias returned. Once again, aliens mocked him. Human myths are nothing but lies, one said. Perhaps they believe their gods will fight their battles, another added. This time Elias only smiled. Believe what you wish. Stories have power. They teach us what we must become. The chamber laughed again, but their laughter would not last forever, for at the far edge of human space, fleets continued to grow. Warships waited in silence, their engines quiet, their weapons ready. And when the time came, the galaxy would no longer laugh at human myths, because those myths would soon arrive at their borders, carried by steel, fire, and determination. The Galactic Council moved on with its endless debates. Trade agreements, border disputes, and resource treaties filled the chamber's schedule. To most alien delegates, humans were an afterthought, a minor race, more interesting for their myths than for any real influence. But not everyone was laughing. In a dimly lit archive tower far above the main chamber, archivist Vanar scrolled through records. His species, the Cerethi, were known for memory and careful study. Vanar's eyes, wide and gray, reflected the shifting maps of human space. He leaned closer, comparing projections from 10 cycles ago to the newest reports. Something was wrong. Expansion at this rate should be impossible, he whispered to himself. They were supposed to add 3 colonies. Instead, they have 7. Their shipyard output has doubled. Their resource intake, it does not match their known limits. The sound of tentacles tapping glass broke his concentration. His colleague Dren, a Sevelin with coiled limbs and a soft, rasping voice, had entered. "You still study the humans?" Dren asked. "Yes," Vanar replied, not looking up. "Everyone mocks them, but I think the laughter blinds us. Look." He adjusted the maps. Lines traced trade routes between Earth, Mars, and the colonies, stretching outward like a spider's web. Each line pulsed with movement. Freighters, convoys, patrol ships. Dren tilted his head. "It looks organized. Too organized for a young species," Vanar said. "And notice this. Every colony sits near asteroid belts or resource-rich systems. Every route is protected. Their myths may be foolish, but their planning is not." Dren frowned. "If you warn the Council, they will ignore you." "I already tried," Vanar muttered. They laughed like they laugh at the humans. But whispers of strength are rising. We must watch. Far from the Council's shining halls aboard the carrier ISS Leviathan, Commander Sophia Reyes walked across the flight deck. Rows of fighters gleamed under bright hangar lights, pilots checking their crafts with practiced precision. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Mark Danvers, approached. "Commander, training reports are complete. Squadron readiness is higher than projected." Reyes smiled. "Good. The galaxy sees us as weak, but discipline is our shield. If they believe we only dream, let them believe it. Dreams shaped our history. Now discipline shapes our future." She stopped near one fighter where a young pilot painted a small symbol on the hull. It was not numbers, not letters, but a drawing. A simple winged horse. Reyes raised an eyebrow. "What is that, Ensign?" The pilot straightened. "Pegasus, ma'am. From old Earth myths. My father told me stories when I was a child. Said Pegasus carried heroes into battle. I thought, maybe it will carry me too." Reyes chuckled softly. "Keep painting, Ensign. Myths carried our people through storms and wars long before we came to the stars. Let them carry us again." Back at the Council, news arrived that made some delegates uneasy. A minor border world, unimportant to most, had been raided by pirates. Yet when reports came, they told of something strange. The pirates had been driven back, not by mercenaries or alien patrols, but by human defense forces. Small ships, yes, but coordinated with unusual efficiency. They fought like a species that had known conflict for centuries. An insectoid delegate waved a claw dismissively. Coincidence. Even children with sticks can chase away scavengers. But others frowned. The stone-skinned delegate, who had mocked humans before, now rumbled quietly. "Their ships may be small, but the reports describe tactics I recognize. Surround, confuse, strike at weak points. It is not the work of amateurs." Still, most laughed it off. "Humans win one skirmish and think themselves warriors," the bird-like delegate chirped. "Their myths are spreading into their heads again." But in the quiet corridors after the session, nervous whispers spread. In a hidden meeting room on Earth, leaders of the United Human Fleet gathered. Holograms of admirals, generals, and governors flickered above the table. Admiral Catherine Hale, stern as ever, spoke first. "We cannot remain unnoticed forever." Already whispers spread among the aliens. They begin to wonder if our myths hide truths. Governor Lee from Mars leaned forward. "Good, let them wonder. But we must remain patient. If we strike too soon, they will unite against us. Patience, yes, Hale agreed, but readiness too. Every fleet must be prepared. Every colony must stand strong. When they mock us, they only sharpen our resolve. Around the table, heads nodded. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries, first by itself, then by its neighbors. That underestimation had always been an advantage. Meanwhile, in alien markets, traders whispered in hushed tones. "Have you heard?" one said. "Humans built 3 new warships in a single cycle." "Impossible," another replied. "They do not have the resources." Yet it is true. My cousin saw them docked near Mars. Enormous vessels with names carved from their myths. The second trader shook his head nervously. "If their myths fuel their fleets, perhaps laughter is not wise." On the edge of human space, young cadets trained in orbital academies. They read ancient texts alongside modern manuals. They studied Sun Tzu and Julius Caesar, Napoleon and Yamamoto. They practiced strategies that had shaped Earth's bloody history. One instructor told his class, "The galaxy mocks our myths, but those myths taught us something important. Never surrender, never bow, never stop fighting. Remember this when you fly," and the cadets repeated together, "Never bow, never stop." Back in the archives, Vaynar prepared another report. He sent it quietly, coded so that only a few trusted colleagues would see. Human expansion is faster than any species we have recorded. Their culture is strange, myths and legends, but those myths guide their unity. Where others fracture, they hold together. Do not laugh, watch, prepare. But even as he sent the report, he knew most would still laugh. The council was proud. They believed themselves wise. And wisdom blinded them to the quiet storm rising at their borders. Late at night, Elias Ward, the human ambassador, sat in his quarters on the council station. He looked out at the stars, remembering the laughter of the chamber. He whispered to himself, not as a diplomat, but as a man. They think myths are weakness. They do not understand. Myths are warnings. And one day, when they hear the names of our fleets, they will realize the warnings were for them. He picked up a small book from his desk, old and worn. It contained Earth's myths, stories of gods and heroes. He turned the pages slowly, then smiled. Let them laugh. We are patient. But when our ships arrive, the laughter will end. Thus the whispers grew louder. Some ignored them. Some dismissed them. But others, those who listened carefully, began to fear. For humanity was no longer just a race of storytellers. They were becoming the story. The galaxy had laughed at humanity for too long. For years, the council chambers rang with jokes about human myths and human pride. But whispers had started to spread. Whispers that humans were growing stronger, building fleets, and preparing for something more. And then at the far edge of space, the whispers turned into fire. It began on a quiet colony world called Haven's Reach, orbiting a small yellow star. Haven's Reach was young, with only 30,000 settlers. They lived in domes on the surface, growing food and building small industries. To the council, the colony was unimportant. To the humans, it was home. One evening, alarms echoed across the domes. On the horizon, black ships broke through the sky, their hulls marked with jagged symbols. These were not council fleets. They were raiders, a minor alien power known as the Kavaris. The Kavaris had no respect for treaties or rules. They lived by taking what they wanted, and they believed the humans would be easy prey. Their leader, Captain Korvek, laughed over the comms as his ships descended. Humans tell stories of gods and heroes. Let us see if those heroes come to save them now. Take everything. Burn the rest. The settlers panicked, rushing to shelters. The colony's small defense force scrambled a few patrol craft, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Korvek's ships opened fire, raining plasma across the colony's shield domes. Energy barriers flared, shaking under the assault. But even as the Kavaris laughed, signals raced through the void. Haven's Reach had sent a call for help, and humanity answered. 3 days later, the sky above Haven's Reach changed. At first, the raiders thought it was only a trick of light, but then the stars themselves seemed to move. Out of the void, ships emerged, sleek steel gray, carrying the banners of Earth. The ISS Ares, a battleship named after the old god of war, appeared at the front. Its cannons glowed like burning suns. Alongside it, cruisers and destroyers fanned out, wings of fighters sweeping into formation. Admiral Catherine Hale's voice echoed across the system. Calm, firm, cold. This is Admiral Hale of the United Human Fleet. You attacked a human colony. You will leave at once or be destroyed. Korvac roared with laughter. Your myths gave you courage, human? Then let us see if your myths can stop plasma fire. He ordered his fleet forward. The first clash had begun. The battle was not a chaotic mess. It was precise. It was sharp. It was terrifying in its efficiency. Human ships moved like they had rehearsed the battle 1,000 times. Fighters darted forward in tight wings, striking engines and weak points. Cruisers cut across the raider formation, blasting shields apart. The Ares unleashed a broadside that tore a Kavaris heavy ship in half. The raiders had expected hesitation. They had expected confusion. Instead, they faced discipline born from centuries of Earth's wars. Every tactic, every maneuver came from lessons humanity had carried since ancient times. Surround, confuse, strike at weakness, one human captain murmured as his ship cut through enemy fire. It was the same lesson generals had used on Earth for thousands of years. Korvac's laughter turned to panic. Hold formation! Hold formation! But his fleet was already breaking apart. Within hours, the raiders were fleeing, their ships burning trails of plasma behind them. The humans did not chase them beyond the system. Admiral Hale's orders were clear. Protect Haven's Reach, show strength, but do not yet start a war with the Council watching. When the last raider vanished into jump space, silence filled the system. Then the settlers of Haven's Reach cheered. Their myths had come alive, not in gods descending from the sky, but in human warships standing like giants against the dark. The news spread faster than light. At the council chamber, alien delegates listened in shock as reports arrived. The bird-like delegate squawked in disbelief. A minor human fleet destroyed Korvac's raiders? Impossible! The insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles nervously. It is not impossible. It is recorded. They fought with precision. They fought with unity. The stone-skinned delegate rumbled. Perhaps their myths are not lies. Perhaps they were warnings, but many still laughed. One victory means nothing, they said. Humans are still children telling stories. Yet the whispers continued. In the markets, in the archives, in the hidden corners of the galaxy, the story of Haven's Reach spread. Humans had stood against a raider fleet and won. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge of the Ares, watching Haven's Reach from orbit. The colony's domes glowed with light, safe again. Her communications officer approached. Admiral, the Council is requesting a full report of the battle. Hale gave a thin smile. Send it, let them read it. Let them laugh. But make sure they understand one thing. Our myths walk beside us. And when we fight, we do not fight alone. We fight with all of history at our side. She turned to the fleet, her voice steady. Prepare for the next move. This was only the beginning. On Earth, celebrations broke out. For centuries, humanity had feared being seen as weak, mocked by stronger races. But now, children heard the story of Haven's Reach and lifted their heads higher. Teachers told their students, remember Hercules. Remember Achilles. Remember Thor. Remember Ares. Humanity has always fought the impossible. And today we proved the myths are alive in us. Parents whispered to their children at night. The galaxy laughed at our stories. But one day our fleets will be those stories. Never forget. In the dark halls of the archives, Vaynar read the battle reports with wide, fearful eyes. He spoke to Dren in a hushed voice. It has begun. The whispers were true. Their fleets are no myth. Dren coiled his tentacles nervously. Do you think the Council will listen now? No, Vaynar said softly. They will laugh until the fleets stand at their borders. By then it may be too late. For now, humanity did not boast. They did not parade. They rebuilt Haven's Reach, strengthened their colonies, and trained harder than ever. But across the stars, the first clash had changed everything. The galaxy had laughed at human myths. Now for the first time, the galaxy was afraid. The news of Haven's Reach did not fade. It spread like fire across the galaxy. Everywhere the story was told, it grew larger than the battle itself. Humans had faced raiders and won. Humans had stood together, disciplined and unyielding. The Council tried to dismiss it. Official statements claimed it was a small skirmish, nothing more. But in markets, in academies, in hidden corners of the galaxy, people whispered, "Did you hear? The humans named their battleship after Ares, a god of war. And their fighters painted symbols from old myths. Perhaps their stories give them power." The laughter had not stopped, but it had changed. It no longer sounded certain. It carried unease. On Earth, myths were no longer just bedtime tales. They became banners. At the Naval Academy in Luna orbit, cadets marched under flags showing Hercules lifting mountains, Athena with her spear, and Odin watching with a single eye. One instructor told his class, "Aliens mocked our myths, but those myths were never weakness. They are reminders. Hercules teaches us strength. Athena teaches us wisdom. Odin teaches us sacrifice. Remember these when you wear your uniform." The cadets repeated together, strength, wisdom, sacrifice. On Mars, children painted murals of ancient heroes beside human warships. One mural showed Achilles standing with a human marine. Another showed Thor raising his hammer above a fleet of cruisers. The message was simple. Myths and ships stood together. In orbit above Saturn, the shipyard completed a massive vessel. It was larger than any battleship humans had ever built. When it was launched, its name was broadcast across every colony, ISS Leviathan. The name came from the sea monster of old stories. But to humans, it was more than a monster. It was a symbol of the deep, of fear itself. By naming the ship Leviathan, humanity claimed even fear could be turned into strength. Admiral Hale stood at the launch, her voice calm but proud. Aliens mocked us for dreaming, but dreams guide our hands. Myths give us names, and names give us courage. Let the galaxy laugh. When they hear the name Leviathan, they will not laugh again. The crowd of workers and officers cheered, their voices echoing across the station. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, the mood had shifted. The insectoid leader clacked its mandibles uneasily. These humans name their fleets after gods and monsters. It is a sign of arrogance. The bird-like delegate tilted its head nervously. Or perhaps it is a sign of belief. They believe their myths are real within themselves, and belief can be dangerous. The stone-skinned delegate rumbled. "I warned you after Haven's Reach, their stories are not toys. They are weapons of the mind." Still, many delegates refuse to see the truth. They are still young, still small. Let them play with their names. The galaxy is too vast for them to matter. But the whispers grew louder. On a distant colony world, a scholar from the Cerethi archives gave a quiet lecture. Vaynar, the same archivist who had studied human records, stood before a small group of students. "You laugh at their myths," he said softly. "But do you understand what they mean? Humans come from a world of storms, earthquakes, predators, and endless war. Their myths are lessons. They teach courage when afraid. They teach unity when divided. They teach survival when the world seems impossible. Every child hears them, every generation carries them." One student raised a hand. "But they are only stories, aren't they?" Vaynar shook his head. "Stories shape minds, and minds shape actions. Their fleets now carry these names. Every pilot, every soldier, fights not just as themselves but as the hero or god whose name they carry. That is power no statistics can measure." The students grew silent. Back in human space, Admiral Hale gathered her senior officers aboard the Leviathan. Maps of alien borders glowed across the table. "We do not seek conquest," she said. "But we will not be mocked and we will not be prey. If they challenge us again, we answer with strength. Our fleets carry the names of myths for a reason, to remind us that humanity has always risen when others thought us broken." Commander Reyes nodded. "Our pilots already call themselves Valkyries. They believe they fly with destiny." "Good," Hale replied. "Belief turns fear into fire." At the same time, settlers on frontier worlds told stories at night. Around campfires under alien skies, they spoke of Perseus slaying monsters, of Gilgamesh defying death, of Arthur and his knights standing together, and the children listening imagined human fleets doing the same among the stars. One child asked his father, "Will our ships fight monsters too?" The father smiled. "They already do. But our monsters are not dragons or giants. They are raiders, enemies, and doubt itself. And just like in the old stories, we will overcome them." The next test came sooner than anyone expected. A coalition of smaller alien powers, nervous after Haven's Reach, sent a fleet near human borders. Officially, it was a patrol. Unofficially, it was a warning. Stay small, stay quiet. When the fleet crossed into neutral space, humanity responded. The Leviathan appeared first, its massive hull blocking the stars. Alongside it came the Ares and the Valkyrie wing of fighters. The alien commanders froze when they read the names glowing across the ships. Leviathan, Ares, Valkyries. The words spread like thunder across their comms. To them, these were not just names. They were challenges. They were myths come alive. Admiral Hale opened comms, her voice steady and cold. You entered human space. Leave now, one alien captain sneered. You cannot frighten us with old names and painted symbols. But his crew whispered among themselves. They had heard the stories of Haven's Reach. They had heard the humans believed their ships carried the strength of gods, and though they would never admit it, fear crept into their hearts. The coalition withdrew without firing a shot. When news of this spread, the galaxy finally began to understand. Myths were not weakness. They were not lies. They were the fuel that lit humanity's spirit. The aliens had laughed at Hercules, Odin, Athena, and Leviathan. Now those names blazed across the stars, carved into steel and fire. And wherever human ships traveled, the myths traveled too. In the council chamber, silence fell when the latest report was read. No one laughed this time. The stone-skinned delegate spoke first. You mocked them. We all did. But myths are not weakness for them. They are warnings. They told us who they were, and we did not listen. The insectoid leader clicked nervously. If their myths are alive in their fleets, what happens when those fleets stand at our borders? No one answered. On Earth, Elias Ward, the human ambassador, stood once more in the council. He did not shout. He did not boast. He simply placed an old book of human myths on the speaking platform. We told you our stories, he said quietly. You laughed. You mocked. But you did not understand. Our myths are not fantasy. They are mirrors of our spirit, and our spirit now sails among the stars. The chamber stayed silent. For the first time, there was no laughter. The myths had come alive. Not as gods, not as monsters, but as fleets, as warriors, as a people who refused to bow. And soon, the galaxy would see what happened when stories became steel.